can't get my video to work, but that's okay. I'll figure it out soon.
Okay, very good.
Afterwards.
So since we do not appear to have any folks from the public attending, I don't need to go through the placing your name and the name of the streets you live on verbiage, do I? Indicate which agenda item you wish to address. I think that we're good to go on to the first item, which is, other than calling to order, the approval of the minutes. And we all received the minutes, courtesy of Ken and company. Is there any discussion around the minutes from last month's meeting? If there are not, oh, I'm sorry.
None here.
No Jim, no Harry, no Rich. Okay, if there's none, then may I have a motion and a second for approval?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So moved. Thank you. Now we're moving on to the Patton Township Housing Task Force and appointing a planning commission member to serve on that task force. So as you've seen, or maybe Anita, do you want to take this or should I?
Or Nicole's
I could
done
talk
the
about
work
it.
on it.
Okay, Nicole.
So as you all know, we are creating a housing task force to look at housing needs in Patton Township. And we hope to be able to put a report forth in the fall or near the end of next year in 2021. Supervisor Teese and I will be kind of the co-chairs, but more from just an administrative and like a facilitative role for the group that we're trying to put together. So we did come up with a list of people that we think we should invite to attend from various spectrums in the business community. We're working on kind of rounding out our list. We've talked to some housing experts. We would like to get at least one of you to join with us to help us be kind of the liaison between the task force and the planning commission and potentially the board. So we're kind of hoping that we can go ahead and get somebody appointed tonight so that when we have all of our other members and our residents selected in January and February, we'll be ready to kick off our meetings early next year. I think we're looking at February for our first meeting at this point. At this point, everything will be done through Zoom and through email. One meeting a month. We're going to work out whether or not that's going to be scheduled on a more regular basis, like our planning commission meetings, or if we maybe need to be a little more flexible, that not everyone will be able to meet at the same time of day or of week. So we're going to work all that out. So at this point, unless there's any specific questions, I did attach the proposal that Supervisor Teese wrote up that went through that you've seen before. But we would like to go ahead and ask somebody to maybe volunteer, or if you guys want to discuss among yourselves how you want to do that. We could technically take more than one person if we get people that more than one of you are interested, so it doesn't have to be just one of you. And if you have any questions or you need more information, we will be still working out kind of the organizational details, and we'll be in touch, Anita or myself, with more information and more of the documentation and scheduling and things like that as we get it completed in the next couple months. So with that, I will take any questions you guys have.
May I please ask, how many folks are you anticipating serving on this task force?
So when I kind of did a rough count of getting someone from all the different areas that we would like, plus a few residents, we are thinking this is going to be probably about 16 to 18 different people who will be on this task force. And I believe, Kate, I don't know if you mind me mentioning this, that you are interested in being on it as well. And I think we are counting you as one of those people, but we also want to make sure, because we know this is your last meeting, that we get someone who's going to be on the commission next year and the year after maybe that can help us with this as well.
So I would be an at-large member.
Can everyone see the please move this window away from the shared box? Am I the only one who can see that? Okay, I don't know why it's there, but if you can't see it, it's fine.
I can see it.
Oh, you can see it. Oh, hi.
You can move your windows. Usually you can move. If you
Well, I only have
click
one
on your
screen.
windows, you can move them around on your
Open.
screen.
So I don't know.
So let me ask, planning commission members.
I'm just-
If there's interest, if you want to have this conversation now, if you'd rather have it offline, thoughts? As Nicole said, I'm cycling off. I'm term limited this month. So I want to serve as a member of the general public on this task force, but we still need a planning commission member.
Well, I would be interested if no one else does.
That sounds great.
Perfect, yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome. Looking forward to it.
I think there'll be some good conversation. Yes.
Should be great.
Yeah, and I don't know, Doug, maybe you can answer this, since this is kind of just an informal group that we're creating. I have it written in a sort of a motion, sort of action, but do we actually need a formal motion to appoint Jim to our task?
No, not from the planning commission. I mean, if there's the consensus is from Jim, that's fine. At some point with the board, we'll do a formal appointment to these for the ad hoc committee.
That works for me.
Thank you. And that will be Anita as sort of the ad hoc leader of this, or?
Nicole and I both are co-chairs. And Nicole on the technical side, which is going to be great, as witness the fact I can't get my video to work. And Nicole also doing all the county coordination and a number of good things. So we are co-chairing.
Perfect. Thank you. So we don't need to really take action on this, correct? All right. Well, that brings us to the status report on pending items. And can anyone want to elaborate on actions taken by the Board of Supervisors at the November meeting? Burnell Road Park Phase 2A, et cetera?
Yeah, they conditionally approved it. I can't really recall any notable discussion items. I don't know if anybody is thinking of anything that I'm missing from that.
All right. Well, based on that, this will be, I'm known for running snappy meetings, but this might be the shortest yet.
Perfect.
Well, if anybody wants to represent the planning commission at the board meeting on Wednesday night, we're at 5:00. I don't think we had a designated rep.
I think I'm the designated rep.
Okay, I will send you the link,
Thank you.
the agenda.
Well, very good. Well, so thank you all for attending. Don't go away because we're going to have our work session, but it's been a pleasure and an honor to work with you all. Adjourned. And moving on, the creation and prioritization of new work session tasks for next year. Nicole, you want to walk us through that?
Sure. So basically, since I've been here, and I think a little bit prior, the two major focuses were the rewrite of the planned airport district and affordable housing. Well, we have decided to view consultants, which is being pushed back a little bit, which is understandable with everything going on with COVID. So that's a little bit on hold. And then now we're creating the Patton Township Housing Task Force for affordable housing. So that's not really something that's going to be as heavily discussed with the Planning Commission at this point. So I went ahead and spoke with different staff and different municipal planners and others as well to try to get us a few ideas of things to talk about. And I did a small little write-up of just kind of 4 different ideas of things that we can look at now, we could look at later, and just start to try to get us some sort of working task list to jump off from here, and then kind of come back to that when we need new things to work on. Things can be added, things can be taken away. It's a very flexible document. So this is just sort of the starting point, and these were just some ideas that I was able to compile. If you don't like any of the ideas, we can discuss that as well. I didn't really write that in the agenda, but this is all open for discussion about where we go from here and what we would like to be working on. So there are the 4, reviewing the sign ordinance to get it into compliance with the court case Reed versus the town of Gilbert. And I did attach a little summary of what that entails for you all with the agenda. Looking at the wireless facilities ordinance, which is something else that's kind of a more fluid thing that we could try to keep up with. And then a couple different things that are going to come out of the climate adaptation plan from the sustainability planner with the CRPA, talking about requiring or incentivizing bicycle parking. And then the EV charging stations, I do believe I saw some documentation where the Patton Township Planning Commission has discussed in the past, but it does seem to be growing and trend. And I believe some of the new building code documentation, which, you know, will take a few years to get to us specifically, but the trends are continuing that way. So I thought it might be a good time to get that back on the radar. It's not urgent. Again, this is a flexible list anyway, so it's not something we would have to start talking about tomorrow. So those are just some of the things that I was able to kind of compile based on things that I've read, the Patton Township has looked at, and things that are kind of happening in other center region municipalities. And then I also thought I would open it up to you guys if there's anything that you've been thinking about in the community that you would like to be talking about or address. We can certainly add to this list now if there's anything you would like me to add. And then I will go ahead and launch a poll. I have it set up so that you can just pick one. And I figured we would just rank it based on the most popular submissions. And then, like I said, if there's anything on here you don't really think merits talking about, we can take it off. We can leave it on to talk about down the road. So it's really up to you guys from here, what you want to do and how we proceed. So if you have any questions or you want to discuss among yourselves or with us at the staff level, what you would like to do.
Well, I'm kind of out of this conversation, so Rich, Bill, Jim,
I'm fine.
Harry, Robert, thoughts?
I'm fine with the items that you put down, Nicole. I know that in the past, I believe we had, talked to some people about some of the charging station infrastructure. The sign ordinance piece, I was not aware of, some conflicts with that when I read the article. The only thing that I think I mentioned to you through an email is, which I know some of our mixed overlay and some of the other things that we're discussing kind of encompass this is, based on some changes that might occur going forward post-pandemic, do we need to, continue to pursue some more flexibility in terms of some of our zoning areas. So those are my thoughts.
So Rich, you voiced the thing that was in the back of my head, which was, what do we need to be doing to think about post-pandemic, planning for and then enacting post-pandemic, if anything, how that's going to impact the housing markets, traffic, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I was sort of putting it more in the context of, some places might have a changing need or, if things close, open, changing need going full remote, less in person, just kind of those thoughts in my head, Kate, kind of along the same, vein.
So how things will be different because they will never be back to exactly what they were before.
Well, who knows? It's 2020. But.
So if I may, Rich, how are things in the schools?
Well, we have a board meeting tonight. We're, do I know if the entire remote piece is going to go away going forward? I don't know that. I tend to think that, some things going forward are going to stay remote. So how that looks in terms of, certain enrollments of physical students in a building, I know that the one area that has been helpful is, for example, in the past when kids were sick or missed school, there wasn't a remote option to pursue, and now there is. So, in terms of physical bodies in a school building, if people have conflicts or other things, they still have a way to learn now, whereas in the past that was a little bit more challenging. I don't know if that answers your question directly, Kate.
It was a pretty vague question. But my understanding is the state college area school district's been doing a remarkable job of keeping the infection rate low.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the transmission rates, in the school have been, I know that one of the things that they're taking a look at is with the mandated quarantines, trying to be able to staff things properly. I know that's something they're taking a look at where, as a lot of businesses are.
Thank you for that.
I could also tell you that some of the students are actually in class. Mine was actually in class today with over at Gray's Woods. He's on IEP, however, for speech therapy. And they've just started a program of where they're sending the students home with the COVID spit test. So we should be seeing, we should be getting more information here in the next month or two of what's going on. I would predict, if I was going to make any predictions, I would err that the schools are going to reopen pending whatever trial study is going on with the IEP students and their spit tests. So if the infection rates are probably where we think they are, which is realistically zero with amongst the students, then I expect probably the students most likely to go back. That would be my feeling and sentiment, and also the sentiment of talking to other parents, at least in my local area. I think, bravo to the schools, and bravo to teachers like Rick, who have stressed to the students, washing their hands, wearing their masks, and keeping really good, hygiene, because that has shown that the school's infection rate's probably lower than our entire town infection rate. So, I mean, to me, if I'm going to make my plug to CNET, call the school board. It's so far it's been shown that keeping the kids in school has actually kept them safer than just wandering around outside. But that's just me, and that's just looking at the data and being data driven. I just actually, to segue back to the Reed v. Town of Gilbert, I actually did just pull up the case if anybody's actually interested in the full case. I know not everybody gets really happy on reading, actual case law versus what, somebody's interpretation of the case law was. So, you want me to pull that for you?
No, I'm leaving it in Nicole's hands. Nicole and Ken can handle this one. I've ignored it for 6 years now. So,
well, we haven't been sued, and if I had known 6 years ago I could have sued over something, I should have. No, I think usually getting things into, like getting sign ordinances into First Amendment commercial speech regulations, actually something pretty quick, and I think we can lead that through for next year really fast. But that's just being me, and actually being an attorney. So I guess I think we can get through this. I think we can get through this one pretty fast and get this rectified. Charging stations are interesting. I do like the concept of the charging stations. It's just that I guess my first question on that is, do we even know what the infrastructure that would be needed for that is?
Oh, God.
Yes.
There's quite a lot of staff work done on this in the past.
Right.
yeah, we had looked at it a little bit before. It wouldn't be bad to revisit if we need to. At one point, some of the emphasis was on just getting the conduits in place in home. So if somebody wanted to install one in the garage, you didn't take a major redo, but just needed to pull some wires between your power box and wherever your charger is going to be.
I'm all for conduit being required to be in residential buildings. And I would love to see, I wish there was more conduit in my building so that I could have pulled my data lines through the house easier. So I'm all for requiring conduit, and I'm all for requiring sprinklers. And I just heard a collective groan from every single
No,
contractor
I'm
in the
all
area.
fire company, extended family. I'm all about it.
I think a year or so ago, we heard from Sheets when we studied this, and they said the cost for them to put it in their facilities was close to $500,000.
For conduit.
No, for the entire installation and 4 or 5 stations.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Tesla's putting some in right now at the Sheets on
I
Cullen.
saw that, yeah.
I don't know what, you remember what the estimate was at on that, Ken, or?
I think it was, if I remember right, I think it was somewhere close to 800,000.
Yeah.
They're putting in multiple charging stations.
Right.
But I think when we last talked about it, we weren't quite sure, looking at it, because it's just like whenever cars started to come about and requiring gas stations. I mean, we didn't know really where they should be. The same as charging stations. We were discussing it before, and we said, at one time, we're not quite sure where a charging station should be, and requiring somebody to put a charging station in that's not going to be well utilized really defeats the purpose of it.
The state has been financing a lot, or been doing grants, because we got a grant. We have one in our parking lot now, charging station. And I don't know, Alex, I don't know if we can get information from the state on where all those have gone in. Those have been grant funded. Might be a good piece of information on. Oh, there must be websites out there that show where charging stations are too.
Yeah, I had to have ours added to that.
Yeah, so I mean, we can look. I mean, it's worth a discussion to at least look at. I think the last time we looked at it, we kind of deferred that the market forces were probably stronger than the regulatory forces we could bring to bear, and so we let them. We were letting the market take care of it, and couldn't tell you where we're at today exactly, but.
So my question becomes, going back to the grant issues, is there a way that we can, that Patton Township can apply for a grant and then use it to put it, for example, prior to the pandemic, autos always seemed to be very popular. And I'm just choosing them because I have an interest in breweries. So, would, and they're one of our primary restaurants. I'm trying to think of a couple of other major restaurants in the Patton Township area. If you're going to a restaurant, you're going to be there for 45 minutes, typically. Is it a good idea? Is it a good idea to look at restaurants with parking lots such as, autos? And then my next question, and I'm just saying, is there a way to incentivize or get a grant to then go to them and say, hey, look, you're not going to have to pay for any of this. We're going to install it for you type situation, and see if they would be interested in something like that. Just sort of like big, bright ideas, and then drill down on whether or not it actually can be done.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Yeah. Because, being a compliance lawyer on a lot of things, I do like carrots versus sticks. I think you get a lot more. Buy-in from private businesses when you offer them a carrot that's financially feasible for them. Sometimes, they look at the carrot and everybody goes, "Well, the carrot didn't work." It's because it was still not financially feasible for them. And then also being on that compliance tax regulation type attorney, is there anything that we can look at local tax wise to push people in that direction? But slowly over the years. Yeah.
So similarly, but a little different, charging stations in the Colonnade area where people are going, and they're going to Target, they're going to Wegmans, and they're spending a good half hour, 60 minutes there. Or in Patton Crossing, should we be thinking about where you can park once, charge, and do lots of different errands?
There are vendors we could talk to and just, I'm sure by Zoom, we could get them in at some point just to give us a sense of where they are and where they see the market.
I do think that allowing the market to help shape this is important, but I also think sometimes the market needs a little nudge.
My quick 2 cents worth, if you're going to a restaurant, you're there for a very short time. You shouldn't be needing a charge to get back home. Overall, I think where charging stations are needed the most are at hotels, motels where people may be in town for 2 or 3 days and would need a recharge.
So for instance, up in the Shaner development at the interstate.
Right.
Good thought.
Yeah, the issue though with that I see with that is you're not targeting targeting local populace that that would be encouraged to buy an electric vehicle of some kind, because of course then we also have to get into who's paying for the electricity, everything like that. But from what I understand, most of the people that do long distance traveling aren't purchasing an electric vehicle just because of that issue. They can stop at a gas station, get filled up. They don't have to think about it. So I think even though that's a really good idea, Jim, and I think that's actually, I think that's actually a really good idea of maybe requiring 1 or 2 chargers at any new hotel complex. I think in reality, it's not going to be that situation of where you're going to get those long distance travelers with electric cars. Not yet, at least. Maybe if we were in California where there's been a better buy-in of electric vehicles, that would probably be true.
Well, they have improved over time where they have longer mileage now. So
yeah, I mean, 300
better.
300 miles a charge, 400 miles a charge. There's one vehicle that I've got my eye on that's up there. I just can't afford the $78,000 that they want for one.
Yep.
So what about places where people work, like for instance, working at Rich schools, or out at Innovation Park, or on campus, or where people's cars are going to be sitting dormant for hours at a time. And this is where a consultant could be really helpful, right? I think,
well, I mean, I think the point would be to get a list of questions together and then go out and find who has the answers. I don't think we have to come up with answers
tonight.
Yeah.
And I think one question to throw out there, just in general for the charging station questions, is what are we trying to overall encourage for the local community? Are we trying to somehow encourage people to feel comfortable to buy and use locally? Or are we trying to encourage people coming to, when traveling to the area? Because let's face it, on a game day weekend, sure, the charging stations are actually probably going to get used because, somebody might have electric vehicle that drove to the area. But I think we also have to nail down of what is going to be the best for the local community of encouraging people locally to buy. And even if we're encouraging, families to switch to, I think I'm right by saying that most of the families in our township are dual car families, at least. Does anybody know?
No, I'd say it's a good guess.
So in the category of never wasting a crisis, right? This might be a really opportune time to think about changing the dynamic, about encouraging people more strongly to think about alternate modes of transportation, whether it be public transportation, post-pandemic, of course, or hybrid vehicles or similar. And in order for that to be successful, we would need to have infrastructure. And so to that point, I'm sure there's studies, Doug and Nicole and Alex, about how the pandemic has caused exhaust and things to, and gas consumed to really drop, right?
No need for a study. PennDOT has a $600 million shortfall because of it.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, you know, can we use this as a teaching moment, if you will?
I mean, what's our own public transit shortfall?
Good question.
It's huge. Aren't we just trying to decide what our priorities are for next year? Or are we trying to solve this tonight?
We're trying to save the world.
We can solve it. Yeah.
We beat this horse to death a year ago or 2 years ago. I mean, I think it should be on our list, but
anyhow, yeah.
I think Kate's just trying to, you know, get it done and get it solved before she
before she leaves,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions there. I guess that's a good point to sort of move on to another one. Another one is how do we incentivize people to go to, I don't know, solar panels on the roofs?
Solar or UAJ is looking at a program that might address that issue. A financing mechanism that would encourage homeowners to do it, and I'll just leave it at that. So
I'll be interested in trialing that. I've got a good south facing, you know.
Yeah. So more to come on that.
Okay.
So other priorities for the Planning Commission. One of the items that in the paragraph above was at the planned airport district. And, you know, we've been talking about that for a long time, Harry, to your point. But, you know, where does the township want to go with that? Are we trying to affordable housing? Are we trying to solve, you know, public transport? What are we trying to do? That was rhetorical.
Well, in terms of PAD, we don't have any money to do anything really on that until 2022. So.
Oh, well, that's a good question.
A lot of thinking on that then.
Hmm?
We can do a lot of thinking on what we want to do with that beyond what we talked about before. But.
So I think another thing that might be really interesting for the Planning Commission commissioners would be a presentation on what's happening in West Top Trees. We just haven't visited that recently.
I should be getting some information after the first of the year, and until they start turning in plans, I don't think they'll tell us what they're planning. So.
Okay.
All we've got is the old master plan.
Yeah. We should see some stuff coming in January. What we've been told.
I think I've got a question. Ken, what's broken and what needs fixing?
On which item?
I don't always know what's broken. So, you know, I mean, you're in this all the time. What's broken and what needs fixing?
Well, I mean, part of it when we go through, you know, and we talk about the sign ordinance, I think we've heard an awful lot of concern from the commercial aspect of it that our sign regulations are, you know, too stringent and too rigid, and they would like to have some more flexibility or some more ability to attract attention to their businesses. That's something that I think is, you're going to continue to get that from the commercial entity all the time, but, you know, maybe we should discuss with them what they would like to see. We have had a few changes regarding flags utilized as, you know, signage for structures now. But one of the big things that I know is going to come up if you do, you know, poll the commercial entity would be if we have marquees and it's a building that's a multi-tenant building. The way our regulations are structured at the moment, like at the Walmart Center or at the Colonnade, there are no marquees that would have anything other than just the name of the center on it. A lot of the folks would like to have placards with each individual tenant in that center. That would be a fairly large change from what we've done in the past, though.
Still think it should be on the table for discussion next year, right?
Mhm.
Similarly,
That's
I
a good
think
point.
a good discussion to have at some point in the next year would be just to revisit where we are with bike paths and hooking them all up, right? We talk about this every so often. But I mean, seems timely.
We can, the Recreation Advisory Committee has been working on that. So again, they've got a plan, and the only thing holding up their plan is money.
That actually brings up a good question back to staff. What are some things that we can try to fix next year that don't require money?
Well, the sign ordinance doesn't require a lot of money.
We've got the sign ordinance.
It's on the top of the list. It's probably going to take a little more work than you think, Bill. I don't know that there's anything. I mean, the PAD, if you asked us about, what district probably needs the hardest look, it's still the PAD. I can't think of anything else right off the top of my head that.
Well, let me ask this. Should indeed gambling come to town in a big way at the mall or similar, like what would be the ramifications for Patton Township or for the region as a whole? And what should we be thinking about in terms of taxation or transportation or similar?
Well, let me just cut you off before you go too far down the rabbit hole. In terms of many casinos, the state legislature gave us an option, I'm going to say 3 years ago, to opt out of many casinos. So the Board of Supervisors took that option. So we can exclude many casinos as a gambling type. The casino, the license that was sold to somebody over in Julian will probably come to fruition. And if you asked any of the people who knew much about zoning and everything around here, they'll tell you it's going to end up in College Township, probably on the old mall property.
Yes, and
that College Township wants it there, so.
But are there things we should be considering about how that could impact the region? That's where I was going. For instance, taxation, money, to Bill's point about not.
All the funds will go to College Township. Okay. They get a direct cut out of everything that goes across the table.
If anything,
I can't remember what it is. It's 1.5% or something, but it'll add up to quite a bit of income for them.
I imagine. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately,
I don't know what it'll do otherwise for the economy. I haven't seen any information on that.
I've dealt with a couple of people in my area that are actually from Las Vegas and used to work in the gaming industry and still provide a lot of support to the gaming industry, and they sort of opened my eyes that it's not going to be a good thing for the surrounding areas. We'll actually start to see our money and our tax base actually go down and go to the College Township area. So that's something to be prepared for.
So there you go. Something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I would actually love to get them to come speak in front of staff, just because their insights into what occurs was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So, and they actually do run a business in the local area, and ironically, they are the sign gypsies. So I'm sure if you find them out, you'll be able to ask about them and get in touch with them. but they also, from what I understand, still work and own a business that deals with back-end software for some of the casinos in Las Vegas. So.
Okay, well, to finish up this agenda item, are there other topics you'd like to see addressed in the coming 12 months?
And I would like to just clarify, no matter how many we come up with, the amount we'll actually work on in 12 months, we don't know. So it's not necessarily going to be all this year that we look at all of these things. So just wanted to clarify that point real quick.
Oh, come on, we'll put 300 on the list and we'll still get to 2.
I mean, we can do what we can do, but it's not all necessarily, let's do all this in 2021. So just saying.
So one topic that surfaces from time to time is working with the CBICC and others to try to attract business and industry to the area. And we talk about it and it moves away, but is that something to address more intentionally? Speaking of tax bases and similar.
No, we've been working with them, with the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
We're part of a group that's called the Center County Economic Development Partnership. Primarily, resources been into some advertising, but we put money into supporting growth of local businesses. The Morgan Industries out at Penn Stater, Sensor Networks, which used to be a bunch of people that worked at GE over in Lewistown, are now doing some very interesting stuff here. And KCF, which is primarily downtown, and they do a lot. They're another group that does a lot with placing sensors on industrial equipment to predict when things are going to break and reducing maintenance costs for industries. They're growing very quickly. They're a local company. We've provided them some not financing, but cash in the past. And they're on a hiring spree right now. So those things are being done already both at the regional and the county level. On that economic development partnership, we work with the larger townships and municipalities, say College Borough and the county and Penn State. And there's a few private partners in that group also.
So thank you. So let me ask a couple more questions. One is, should our planning commission be aligning ourselves more tightly with, say, the university's economic vision for startups, and/or should the planning commission be thinking more deliberately about priorities for the board of supervisors? And putting that out there, staff.
Yeah, zoning and planning haven't been real impediments to economic development. Let me put it that way. There's other drivers. The biggest thing that would help us locally was if the state got more aggressive about economic development. Pennsylvania is, I'm going to just say, very weak in the economic development field. Like I said, planning and zoning hasn't been a real issue. I know, and I don't know that we can fix it because of the way there are some things in Pennsylvania that are just hard to get around in terms of all the people that get involved in a development project. I couldn't tell you how to fix it right now, but so I'm going to say let's not travel down that road.
I was going to say one post-pandemic trend that I think is going to stick around, going back to the schooling, is is remote work and working from home and you know, telnetting into your oh my god, that's going to date me, telnetting into your offices or through high speed bandwidth. Is that something that this board would be looking into, requiring, such as like a high enough bandwidth being installed to all to
Well,
all
you don't have the authority to do that. So, PUC, the Pennsylvania Utility Commission, tightly controls that world to the point where municipalities can't even play in that. We cannot, municipalities in Pennsylvania cannot provide internet service. There's a state law that says you can't do that. We've got the board authorized a project last year, and we started right about the same time as COVID. So we haven't been but I've been working with Jeff Luck and a few other folks to see where there are opportunities within the township to either provide high-speed internet or to provide higher speed internet. We've kind of been on a slow walk here lately. But it's a very complex field. I mean, Comcast could probably turn your speed up 10 times right in a matter of seconds. And all they need is for you to pay for it. And they're the only ones that are going to tell you how much you need to pay. So it's there for most of us. It's just a matter of how do we make it more affordable. There are places in Patton Township that need service that don't have service at all.
I was just more concerned about getting the infrastructure so that Comcast can turn the dial up.
It's there. I'm gonna say probably 90% of Patton Township has fairly good service, and the others 10% that probably doesn't have or still, doesn't have it.
We'll let you build a new tower if you.
Well, no, this is hardwire, really. I mean, hardwire is the ideal. The county's doing some I guess call it Wi-Fi, because I don't know what else to call it, radio or whatever, from towers, but it's still line of sight and distance limited.
So, but there's other work going on in this realm. There's, particularly.
Yeah, no, we're trying to see what options are out there and who we can partner with, and if there's a viable model that we can push along the township. We've got some money in future years pegged for doing something, but it's figuring out what's the best something to do.
So, speaking of Jeff Locke, think about public broadcasting. We've got a big experiment going on in that. Moving on.
Yeah, he's busy at work too, so he doesn't have time for a second job as much that he thought he was going to. Because they've been doing more Zoom stuff.
True.
Yeah.
So folks, are there other items to get on this list to prioritize? Because if they're not, it's 5:20.
Well, why don't you launch the poll, Nicole, and at least get
Okay,
on that.
Alexandra is actually going to launch it for me, but I want to clarify real quick that I have these 4 items, and then there are 3 placeholders I put in case I couldn't edit the poll, and as it turns out, I cannot. But I did want to add, going all the way back to Rich's point about keeping an eye on COVID and flexibility. So it will be a vague thing that, I kind of plan on doing anyway, but I do think maybe getting it more on the radar of something to be looking at and possibly discussing on a more regular basis as it starts to become more clear. So there'll be the 4 options, and then Planning Commission addition. I don't remember the exact wording I used, number 1, because there are 3. We'll just put in some vague idea, because again, these are all kind of vague at this point anyway, until we drill down into them later. Just watching the COVID situation and maybe having projects come out of that once that starts to settle down a little bit. But I also wanted to clarify in all that discussion, it seemed like most of the things that were talked about weren't something that we needed to explicitly add to our task list now. Am I correct in that, or am I missing something that somebody feels very strongly needs to be in our work list at this point to be viewed at some point in the future?
I don't think you're missing anything, but I do think it'd be good to have presentations or discussions with, you know, around things like bike paths or around things like high-speed bandwidth, whatever. They don't necessarily have to be work tasks, but they might be good just to have as informational for both the planning commission, but also the community. And maybe those are at the supervisors and the PC just joins, you know?
Okay. I mean, I'll make a note of that, but I don't know, I guess to your point that it needs to be kind of added to our polling, but I did make a note going forward at meetings to maybe start incorporating some outside presentations just for informational purposes.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure. So if nobody else has anything, are we okay with the structure of the poll? Like I said, I think it's set up that you can only really vote once. Obviously, you can like more than one topic, but whichever one you feel the strongest about, we'll kind of rank them based on the responses that way. But from what I'm hearing, everything can basically stay on the list. So if it doesn't really get any votes, it's just something that's in the background and we can visit whenever we have time. So Alex, whenever you're ready.
Should I end the poll now?
I think.
5 people have done it. Okay.
I was gonna say, I can't even see it.
Okay, I'll end it. Can you see the results?
Mhm.
Yep.
I wonder why I can't. Well, I can't see the results apparently. So if somebody wants to tell me what they're looking at, I can make a list.
Sign ordinance was 83%.
Thank you.
Wireless was 17%. Bicycle parking, 50%. EV charging, 50%.
All right.
That's it.
All right. So sign ordinance and then looking at bike parking and EV charging, and then the wireless facilities kind of comes in last there. And then, like I said, with the COVID stuff anyway, kind of plan on keeping my thumb on that the best I can as it develops. And then to Kate's point, if we're going to try to work in some more informational presentations, that can also be part of that on a kind of as needed basis. So I can work with that. And if everybody's comfortable with that, I think we're good.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda, I think, for today. And just rounding out at about an hour, that's good. Anything else, folks, for the good of the order?
Kate, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done over the past years, and you've done a fantastic job as our chair. So thank you very much, and I just want to wish you and your family continued safety and health. Thank you.
Bless
Thank
you,
you,
my friend. And it's been an honor and a pleasure, and I'm going to sign off now. So see you Wednesday, and take care. We're adjourned.
Okay, thank you,
Hi,
everyone.
Kate.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.